जय जगन्नाथ, जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवति में. I am Dr. Ajay Kumar Misra, welcoming you all to my YouTube channel named Computer The Way of Life. Today is Pahada Yatra of Lord Jagannath, and the topic that we will discuss is cyber law, an ethical issue in global scenario. Viewers, you all are well aware that the rapid growth in requirements increases the dependency among people and compels them to come out from isolation. Internet and networking emerge as a tool that helps them to meet these challenges. With the technological advancement of internet and its influence on human life, the cyberspace becomes a common pool used by every segment of the society with their own domains and boundaries. Whereas internet does not tend to make any geographical and jurisdictional boundaries. Internet users remain in physical jurisdictions and are subject to laws independent of their presence on the internet. It is hard to make a clear distinction among them. However, its anonymous nature allows miscreants to indulge in various cybercrimes. Lack of net neutrality, low investment, high gain with minimum risk, and on having different schools of ethics, practically it appears to be impossible to justify the activities of the cyberspace and to bring a common law which will be accepted and applicable to all worldwide. As a result, cybercrimes are increasing dramatically, and it is expected in near future it will increase in many folds. Now we will discuss the topic in details. The advent of computer and internet has revolutionized the field of communication and influencing every aspect of human lives. Maybe common people, businesses, critical information infrastructure, military, governments, and others. Internet is treated as the information hub and usually termed as economic barometer of the society. An internet user has different domains and they live in different geographical boundaries, but internet has no clear boundary, so it is hard to make a clear distinction among them. Here the issue of jurisdiction and sovereignty plays a vital role. Even a single transaction may involve the laws of at least three jurisdictions: the laws of the state or nation in which the user resides, the law of the state or nation that apply where the server hosting the transaction is located, and the laws of the state or nation which apply to the person or business with whom the transaction takes place. Here, jurisdiction is an aspect of state sovereignty that cannot coexist with it. Here, jurisdiction refers to judicial, legislative, and administrative competence that may have extraterritorial limits of the state or nation. This feature is particularly problematic as the medium of the internet does not explicitly recognize sovereignty and territorial limitations. There is no uniform international jurisdictional law of universal application, and such questions are generally a matter of conflict of laws, particularly private international law. For example, some content of the websites are legal in one country, whereas it is declared as illegal in another, which creates a bottleneck in law issue. Apart from this, there is another problem of cyber law, that whether to treat the internet as a physical space and thus subject to a given jurisdiction's laws, or to act as a world unto itself and therefore free of such restraints, and government should leave the internet community to self-regulate. In addition to this, there is a more balanced alternative in the declaration of cyber session. Human beings possess a mind which they are absolutely free to inhabit with no legal constraints. Human civilization is developing its own collective mind. All we want is to be free to inhabit it with no legal constraints. Since we make sure we cannot harm you, you have no ethical right to intrude our lives. So stop intruding. Some people also argue for more of a compromise between the two notions. They argue that the problem for law is to work out how the norms of the two communities are to play, given that the subject to whom they apply may be in both places at once. In the changing scenario, cybercrime is the most serious challenge of the 21st century. Threats can originate from all kinds of sources and mark themselves in destructive activities that target individuals, businesses, national infrastructures, and governments alike. Malicious use of information technology can easily be concealed. It is difficult to determine the origin or the identity of the criminal. Even the motivation for the disruption is not an easy task to find out. Criminals of these activities can only be traced out from the target, the effect, or other circumstantial evidence. Threat actors can operate with considerable freedom from virtually anywhere. The effects of these threats transmit significant risk for public safety, security of nations, and stability of the globally linked international community. Here the motives for disruption can be anything, such as simply demonstrating technical prowess, that is, skill or expertise in a particular activity or field, theft of money or information, extension of state conflicts, and others. With the criminal activities taking new shapes every day, the possibility for harmful actions propagates, and it is anticipated that the cyberspace becomes more complex in near future, that is pictorially represented. In the adjacent graph, we can observe that the motivation to commit cybercrime is 59%, hacktivism is 23%, and cyber espionage is 18%. Before discussing more about the topic, we must have a clear concept regarding the terms cyberspace, cybercrime, and computer crime. First, we will discuss about cyberspace. Cyberspace can be defined as an intricate environment that involves interaction between people, software, and services. It is maintained by the worldwide distribution of information and communication technology devices and networks. Then cybercrime followed by computer crime. It refers any form of crime that involves computers or computer related devices or other electronic gadgets. The object of offense or target in a cybercrime is either the computer or the data stored in the computer. In this, no physical movement is required to harm the target. Anyone sitting at his own place can hack or crack the computer or electronic devices and can gain unauthorized access. Any illegal act committed using a computer or a computer network, especially the internet, can be broadly categorized as computer used to commit a crime and computer as a target of crime. Under computer used to commit a crime, the child pornography, threatening through email, assuming someone's identity, defamation, spam, and phishing is coming. Whereas computer as a target involves the viruses, ROMs, industrial espionage, software privacy, and hacking etc. Here we must have to emphasize that there is a subtle difference between the terms cybercrime and computer crime. Internet is a necessity for cybercrime, but computer crime can commit without using internet. Next, we will discuss about the working model of cybercrime. Cybercrime involves low investment and returns high gain, which provokes the persons or professionals to choose this as an easy source of income. Nowadays, cybercrime has become a profession. The demography of typical cybercriminal is changing rapidly from bedroom-bound geek to the type of organized gangster. Like efficient business models, cybercrime also depends on horizontal separations. Each phase requires specialized skills and resources, such as it boosts a beyond international market for skills, tools, and a finished product. It even has its own currency. The diagram drawn here describes the working model of cybercrime. Cybercriminals have no specific identification and they do not exclusively work off one another. Different protagonists in the crime community perform a range of important but specialized functions. They can be broadly categorized as coders, kits, drops, and mobs. Coders are the veterans of the hacking community with an exposure in the real-time happenings and a list of established content. They produce ready-to-use tools such as trojans, mailers, custom boots, or services like making a binary code undetectable to heavy machines to the cybercrime labor force, that is the kids. Next, kids. It is termed as kids as because of their tender age. Most are under 18. They buy, trade, and resell the elementary building blocks of effective cyber scam, such as spam list, PHP mailers, proxies, credit card numbers, hacked host, and scam pages. Then drops. They basically convert the virtual money obtained in cybercrime into real cash, usually located in countries with lax e-crime laws like Bolivia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. They represent safe addresses for goods purchased with stolen financial details to be sent, or else safe legitimate bank accounts for money to be transferred into illegally and paid out of legitimately. Then mobs, professionally operating criminal organizations combining or utilizing all of the functions covered by the above. Organized crime makes particularly good use of safe drops as well as recruiting accomplished coders onto their payrolls. Apart from this, phishing tools like scam letter, scam page, hacked website for hosting the scam page, selection of PHP mailers, and a valid but stolen credit card to register a domain name are also used to gain the control of a bank account to accomplish financial fraud. Add phishing to the other cyber criminal activities driven by hacking and virus technologies like carding, adware or spyware planting, online extortion, industrial spying, and mobile phone dialers are also used. Widely committed cybercrimes are topology, spam, fraud, obscene or offensive content, harassment, threats, drug trafficking, cyber terrorism, and cyber warfare. After having an idea about the cybercrime and its functioning, it's a time to discuss about the cyber law and its importance. We are living in a technology-driven society where internet plays a vital role for the growth of humans. Cybercrime is taking place in cyberspace, which is dynamic in nature, and it has no boundaries, no geographical mass. It is changing with the technical advancement. Results a lot of cyber activities that may be right or wrong. The increasing dependency of individuals and organizations on cyberspace results many cybercrimes. The cyber safety depends on the knowledge of the technology and the care taken by user and server systems while using internet, and that of the defensive measures adopted. The term cyber law referred as law of the internet that deals with the legal issues related to use of communication technology, especially cyberspace, that is the internet. It is an attempt to integrate the challenges presented by human activity on the internet with legacy system of laws applicable to the physical world. It is an intersection of many legal fields such as freedom of expression, access to and usage of the internet, online privacy, including intellectual property and jurisdiction. The law for cyberspace is to control the man and the machine. The fundamental goal of cyber laws is to legalize human behavior and not technology. It is technology intensive law advocating the use but not the mishandling of technology. Cyber law comprises of all the cases, statutes and legal provisions that affect persons and institutions who control the entry to cyberspace, provide access to cyberspace, create the hardware and software which enable people to access cyberspace or use their own devices to go online and enter cyberspace. Breach of these rules could lead to action or punishment set by the regional government and must be followed by all people of that region. Next, components of cyber law. Cyber law adds a new dimension to law and its scope is increasing rapidly. An internet user must be aware of basic building blocks of cyber laws, namely netizens, cyberspace, and technology. Netizen is an occupant of net who inhabits the net and uses it as an extension of his day-to-day physical world actions and reproduces his actions like socializing, buying, and selling through online medium and going beyond geographical space and time. He defies geographical boundaries and suppresses identity of a man and yet can indulge in various internet activities. Then cyberspace. Cyberspace incorporates the activities which has occupied in the physical space just prior to entry into cyberspace. Cyberspace provides a link between the physical space and the cyberspace in order to control interface between man and machine. Then technology. Cyber laws are based on two technology. First, technology specific school and technology neutral school. Technology specific school states that there should be single technology platform for the whole community but disrupt the technological innovations, whereas technology neutral school is an advancement or is an amendment of Information Technology Bill 2006 of India. Now we will discuss about the modes of cyber law. To regulate the cyberspace, there are four primary modes of internet named law, architecture, norms, and markets. We will discuss one after another. First, law. This is known as Standard East Coast Code and the most self-evident among all. This approach states that substantial portion of internet activity are subject to traditional regulation and the conduct that is unlawful offline is presumably unlawful online and subject to similar laws and regulations like gambling, child pornography, frauds, and others. Next, architecture. This is also termed as West Coast Code. In this, the concerned parameters decides whether information can and cannot be transmitted across the internet. In this, everything goes through internet filtering software which searches for keywords or specific URL and blocks them before they can even appear on the computer requesting them. In this, they have to follow the basic architecture of different protocols. Next, norms. In this approach, the social interaction and conduct is regulated by social norms and conventions in significant ways, which may vary from one jurisdiction to another. In this, the activities or conduct will be invisibly regulated by the inherent standards of the community and are censored or self-regulated by the norms of whatever community chooses to associate with on the internet. And finally, markets. It is closely associated with regulation by virtue of social norms. Markets also regulate certain patterns of conduct on the internet. The increasing popularity of internet and as a means of transacting all forms of commercial activity and as a forum for advertisement has brought the laws of supply and demand in cyberspace. Next, requirement of cyber law. Conventional laws are insufficient to deal with the crimes that are taking place in cyberspace due to many reasons, like cyberspace is an intangible dimension that is unfeasible to govern and regulate using conventional law. Next, there is no jurisdictional boundary, hence cyberspace has complete disregard for others. Next, cyberspace handles huge traffic and there is a possibility that a corrupt data may escape unnoticed and subsequently leads to problems. Then cyberspace is absolutely open and can be shared by all. Next, cyberspace offers many encryption software and stenographic tools that flawlessly hide information within image and sound files and ensure the confidentiality of information exchanged between cyber citizens. And finally, cyberspace provides extreme mobility to the personal data, goods and services and can easily be pirated across the globe within hours of their release and cannot be detected in real-time environment. Now it's a time to discuss about the advantages and scope of cyber law. We will discuss advantage first, then scope. Under advantages, we can say organizations are now able to carry out e-commerce using the legal infrastructure provided by the Act. Next, digital signatures have been given legal validity and sanction in the Act. Next, it has opened the doors for entry of corporate companies for issuing digital signature certificates to the business of being certifying authority. Next, it allows government to issue notification on the web, thus heralding e-governance. Next, it gives authority to the companies or organizations to file any form, application or any other document with any office, authority, body or agency owned or controlled by suitable government in e-form by means of such e-form as may be prescribed by the suitable government. Next, the IT Act also addresses the important issues of security which are so critical to the success of electronic transactions. Now, the scope. In current situation, cyber laws have a broad scope to deal with the complexities of cybercrime. Following are the major areas that cover cyber laws: e-commerce, online contract, copyright, trademark, business software patenting, e-taxation, e-governance, online fraud detection, defamation and harassment and stacking. Friends, I hope you all have gathered an idea about the computer crime and the existing laws and their norms. Now it's a time to discuss about the ethics, specifically the computer ethics. Men live in societies and to fulfill their daily needs, they perform different activities termed as karma. These activities are circumstantial, need-based, intentional or sometimes to make funds. Basing on the efforts they produce, activities can be broadly classified as good or bad. Bad karmas are those which harm others physically, mentally, socially, financially, morally. To regulate these activities and to maintain social harmony, there is another term, dharma, is used which provide some sort of restrictions on the karmas, especially bad activities termed as ethics. Ethics is a set of moral principles that govern the behavior of a group or individual. Ethics influence how people lead their lives. It is not mandatory to follow, but it is basically for the benefit of everyone what we do. Ethics are not laws that is legally binding, it simply illustrates society's views about what is right and what is wrong. The concept of computer ethics was coined first time in 1976 by a professor named Dr. Walter Manner at Bowling Green State University, whereas the concept was existed in early 1950 when Professor Robert Wiener of Massachusetts Institute of Technology published his book titled Cybernetics. Computer ethics is a part of practical philosophy. It is a set of moral principles that regulate the use of computers. It deals with the procedures, values, and practices that govern the process of consuming computing technology and its related disciplines without damaging or violating the moral values and beliefs of any individual, organizations, or entity. It addresses the ethical issues and constraints that arise from the use of computers and how they can be mitigated or prevented, such as intellectual property right. Under this, the copyright, plagiarism, cracking, software license is coming. Similarly, privacy concerns. Under this, hacking, malware, data protection, anonymity is coming. Software and related services and how computers affect society. In this slide, we will discuss about the different approaches of ethics. As we know, there are different approaches or school of ethics that influences a situation in a certain direction and pushes the final outcome. It is difficult to design a common law which will be binding to the entire internet user worldwide. Different approaches of ethics influencing cyberspace are relativism, deontology, utilitarianism, social contact, virtue ethics. First, we will discuss about relativism. Relativism is a belief that there are no universal moral norms of right and wrong. In relativism approach, ethics divides all activities into two connected but different structures as subject of the moral and number two, culture or anthropological. Subject or moral relativism, each person decides what is right and wrong for them, whereas in case of cultural relativism, right or wrong is decided by a society's actual moral belief structures. Next, deontology. This concept was put forward by German philosopher Immanuel Kant. According to this approach, people's actions are to be guided by moral laws and that these moral laws are universal and based on categorical imperative. Next, utilitarianism. This approach believes that an action is good if it benefits someone and an action is bad if it harms someone. This approach can be broken down into two different schools, act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism believes that an action is good if its overall effect produces more happiness than unhappiness, whereas rule utilitarianism believes that we should adopt a moral rule and if followed by everyone would lead to a greater level of overall happiness than social contact. This contact approach specifies that a society can arise and maintain order if it is guided by some morality based set of rules and everyone must be agreed upon. This approach is influencing modern government and social laws. Finally, virtue ethics. Virtue ethics approach says that ethics should be more concerned with the character of the moral agent, that is virtue, rather than focusing on a set of rules dictating right and wrong actions. Principles of computer ethics. Computer and internet technology is dynamic in nature and has no specific jurisdiction. In this context, it is difficult to assign a specific set of moral codes that is binding for all, although it is necessary that ethics be considered when making decisions in this area. 10 widely industry accepted principles of computer ethics are: number 1, no one should use a computer to harm other people. Number 2, no one is allowed to interfere with other people's computer work. Number 3, no one is allowed to snoop around in other people's computer file. Number 4, no one is allowed to use a computer to steal. Number 5, no one is allowed to use a computer to bear false witness. Number 6, no one is allowed to copy or use proprietary software that they have not purchased. Number 7, no one is allowed to use other people's computer resources without authorization or proper compensation. Number 8, no one is allowed to appropriate other people's intellectual output. Number 9, everyone should think about the social consequences of the program they are writing or the system you are designing. And finally, number 10, everyone always use a computer in ways that ensure consideration and respect for other fellow humans. Finally, we will discuss about the conclusion drawn out of discussion. In view of the global village, everyone on the planet is connected to everyone by the communication technology and internet. Every action on it plays a vital impact, positive or negative, on human life. To regulate the actions that is taking place in cyberspace, various national and international professional societies and organizations have produced code of ethics that give basic behavioral guidelines to computing professionals and users. But there is disagreement about the nature of computer ethics. In this context, a big question mark arises that what extent we can bring ethics to bear on the computer revolution, maybe hardware or software, in order to guide us to better world or at least prevent us from falling into worst world. We are entering a new era of globalization, liberalization, and ubiquitous computing, where computing becomes more prevalent and computer ethics becomes more difficult and more important. On having different ethical standards, the stakes are much higher, and consequently, considerations and applications of information ethics must be broader, more profound, and above all, effective in helping to realize a democratic and empowering technology rather than an enslaving or a deliberating. Therefore, it is extremely important to be alert to what is happening, and we must remain vigilant and proactive so that we do not pillage to global village. Finally, it concludes anyone using internet to interact worldwide must have a clear idea about cyber laws and cyber security in connection with the ethical values that alert and prevent them from any untoward situations. With this, I remain. Hope you all have enjoyed it. Thank you for your patient hearing. Also suggest the topic of interest you want to explain me in future.